Hello, dear students. In this session or in this lecture, we will be dealing with matrices and specifically variance and covariance matrices. And then we will jump to the chapter 8 where we will start the discussions about portfolio management. So in this part, here at the end of chapter 32, we now want to know how to find out the matrix of or the variance covariance matrix or the correlation matrix between a certain number of variables. Okay, and this variance covariance matrix will be used in chapter 9 later on when we will deal with portfolio management for more than 2 assets, so 3 assets and more. We will need the variance covariance matrix and the correlation matrix. So first of all, what is the idea behind it, and then how we can do it or find it on Excel. First of all, at the end of this chapter you will find this table, and later on we'll work on an Excel sheet that I will send you through Classroom. For example, here in this example, we have the 5 years of return for 10 stocks. So here we have the dates, monthly data, and we have 5 years of data for 10 different stocks, McDonald's, etc. We have 10 different stocks. So for each stock, we have 5 years of return. Now, what we would like to know is, for example, what is the correlation between McDonald's and the second one, US Steel, and then what is the correlation or the variance covariance between McDonald's and Microsoft or McDonald's and Apple, and then the covariance or correlation between Microsoft and Apple, etc., etc. So we need all these 2x2 combinations of returns or stocks where we have the variance or covariance or correlation. Okay. So in order to do this, we will be using a certain square matrix that will represent the two parts of the two dimensions of this matrix are the following. We will have something like this. We have here our 10 stocks, and also we now have these 10 stocks here in this part. So we have the stocks now in rows and columns. But what is interesting now is that inside this matrix, we want the variance and covariance, so the relationship between variables 2x2. And if you can see here that, for example, the first value, 0.002, will represent the variance or covariance between McDonald's and McDonald's, because here we have the intersection between McDonald's and McDonald's. And since it is the same variable, so we will call it variance and not covariance. And in the second line here, the case 2, we have x and x, and then mt and mt. So if you see here at the diagonal here in green, we will have the variance, each variance of each variable, and each variable هون variance is calculated with itself. Okay, so for example here the 0.026 is the variance of k, because here we have k and k. So any variance and covariance matrix, you will always find on the diagonal the variances of each of the variables, and the remaining part of the matrix, we will have the cross between different variables, and we will get the covariance. So here, for example, between MCD, McDonald's, and X, we have this covariance, which is 0.0037. We can also find it at this level. So this value here is also found here because it's symmetrical, it's the same. Yani covariance between X and MCD is the same as the covariance between MCD and X. So if you look here, MCD and X are both found here. So we have the same value the covariance between McDonald and X. For example, if you want to see the covariance between Apple and McDonald, you will find it at this level. Apple and McDonald, the covariance is 0.0017, or you can find it here, Apple and McDonald at this level. Okay, so in order to summarize all what we have already said, a matrix of variance covariance هي a matrix where we have columns with rows variables, and inside you will have the covariances or the variances. The variances بيكونوا على diagonal, and outside the diagonal we'll have the covariances between the variables. And بعد شغلة كتير مهمة إنه normally هيدا triangle هون يلي عم يعطينا ال covariances between each of these variables مع هول is symmetrical لهيدا اللي هون، لأنه at each time you will see that 0.73 and 0.37 here is again found here, 0.028 is here, etc. 0.049 is here. So we have a symmetrical relationship between the two. يعني هون all these values are, for example, found in both parts of this matrix, etc. etc. 0.28 whatever. شو بعد فينا نحط؟ let's say 0.43 هي هون for example, and here, etc. etc. 0.11 here and here. So في symmetrical يعني كأنه بالنص مقصوصة وعم نشوفهم بالمراية اثنيناتهم. Okay, so I will delete all these lines. Okay, هيدي هي ال variance covariance matrix. لك وين هون we have some كمان notes that could help you. It is a square matrix لأنه we have the same number of variables من الميلتين على row وال column. على diagonal here we will get the variances, and outside the diagonal we will get the covariances. For example, here لو كان عندنا بس only two variables McDonald and X, we will have a 2 by 2 matrix لأنه في 2 ب 2. The variances will be shown at the diagonal, and covariance هون will be the same, covariance between X and MCD or MCD and X. Okay, great. هيدي ال variance covariance matrix. We can also calculate the correlation matrix. هلا you can go back to the first chapter where we have discussed covariances and correlation وشو معناتهم. بس just to refresh, the correlation usually is between -1 and 1. يعني كأنه covariance could be any value. It could be very small إذا كانوا numbers مثل هول returns صغار، or covariance بتكون كتير كبيرة إذا numbers we are dealing with large numbers. So the correlation هي covariance over the variance، يعني كأنه عم نعمل normalization لتصير ال value of that showed the relationship between the two variables is between -1 and 1 عشان ما يكون عشان to be comparable يعني مع غير إذا بدكم values. So the correlation usually قريبة على ال covariance، بس ال values تبعها are normalized between -1 and 1. يعني ال minimum correlation could be -1 معناتها we have a negative relationship بس يكونوا negative، وبس تكون positive we have a positive relationship between the two variables. Okay, وبس تكون correlation على 0 معناتها there is no relationship. إذا كانت correlation equal 1 يعني we have the exact change or relation هي ذاتها 100%، هي ذاتها كأنه ال variable هي ذاتها. So negative correlation هون, as I have said, when correlation is negative we have a negative relationship between the two stocks, and بس يكون return are positive اثنيناتهم for example بعدين عم ينزلوا سوا ويطلعوا سوا، هون فينا نقول في positive relationship بتكون correlation positive. Okay, so again the correlation matrix هالمرة مش ال variance covariance matrix is also a square matrix as you can see، بس هون instead of having the variances على diagonal حيصير عنا 1 1 1 1 1. ليه؟ لأنه هون we're studying the correlation between McDonald and itself, and the correlation will be 100% 1 يعني لأنه we have the same values من الميلتين. Okay, so normalized هون على 1, and we can see كمان انه هيدي symmetrical يعني هون 041 will be found here, 038 is here, etc etc. And for example for each return هون we can evaluate the relation بينه وبين غير stock. For example let's take X and McDonald's 0.41 يعني في positive correlation بيناتهم وهالقد الcorrelation قوية. You can see here that all the correlation are positive بس we may have negative correlation عادي يعني بس هون in this example all the correlations are positive. You also can see that some correlations are greater than others. For example here MT and X correlation is around 0.88 عالية. For example هون 0.12 between Kellogg and XOM etc etc. Okay, great. So هيدي correlation matrix كمان is interesting and it will be used later on. هلا you will find in this chapter كمان the code, the VBA code, but since we have not explained this part لأنه حتكون بعدين we will talk about the VBA code later and I will skip this part and I will show you how هي part just to calculate the correlation matrix or the variance covariance matrix. بس I will show you how هيدا an example of correlation matrix بس هون لأنه symmetrical عشان ما يحطوا two parts شيلوا هاي البارت وخلوا تاني part لأنه نفس information. So we can find the correlation matrix والcovariance using Excel بطريقة كتير هينة. هلا new version of Excel we do not need to use this code VBA code. Okay, so what we are going to do now, we will jump to Excel file and this one with the same variables and see how we can using Excel calculate the variance and covariance matrices. Okay, and then the correlation matrix. So first of all we have the data here. We have around 60 61 or 62 data على 5 years يعني 5 times 12 شي 60 and we have our 10 I think 10 كانوا 10 returns. Okay, great. So here we have the return, for example, for March 1st of March 2007 للماكدونالد كان plus 3.07%, بجولاي كان negative minus 5%, etc. We are interested in the relationship between the variables هون. بدل ما نشتغلهم 2 by 2 we want to directly find the matrix covariance and variance covariance matrix ونشوف شو بتعطينا. So you can do it by using the following tool. You go to data and then data analysis. كنا هونيك نستعملها to do regression analysis for example. And then once you are here you can find correlation and covariance here. Okay, so let's start with covariance. Excel will ask you what is input range. Okay, يعني انت شو هن الداتا يلي حتعمل عليهم variance covariance matrix. So the input range is this one يعني هن variables من هون من ماكدونالد لحديت exon without the dates لأنه dates we do not need the dates. So I will select from B3 ل K3 and go down to the last observation here. Okay, so هيك I've selected the values مع names of the variables. إذا ما حطيتوا names بيعملها اكسل بس ما حيبين عندكم بالماتريكس النيمز. That's why هون once you have selected the names please هون أول شيء you have to tell Excel إذا هن group by column or by row. نحن هون عنا إياهم by column. إذا كانوا by row يعني إذا حاطين ماكدونالد هيك الريتيرن تبعه and then US Steel etc. you just have to change to rows. بس هون هن columns. And you have to specify إذا the first row هي labels ولا لا. For example here نحن we have selected the first as labels. So هون I have to click on labels in first row. Okay, great. بتاني part of this window هون Excel is asking where you would like to display the results. In a new worksheet, in a new workbook بإكسل فايل جديد or output range معينة أنت you want to select. So فينا نحطها in a new worksheet بس أنا I will choose for example an output range وحطها هون بهيدا الرينج for example just here. okay. مش ضروري يكون على القد بس إنه at least بتقولوا له وين بدكم إياها. And then I click OK and you can see here that we already have the values or the variance covariance matrix between هول ال 10 return هون مع بعضهم and we have the values as you can see. Okay, we will check إذا عنا the same values ولا لا. Let's go back to the variance covariance matrix here. تقريبا yes 0.020 0.038 هول هن 38 etc. هون في details أكتر بس you can for example keep only 4 decimals حيصيروا تقريبا نفس الشيء like this 0.020 0.0374. that's it. okay. so هول ال variance covariance هيدا ال variance covariance matrix رح نكتبها هون var covar matrix. and as I've told you we can also find the correlation matrix. so خلينا نعمل correlation matrix here. correlation matrix using the same method. so again I will go to data analysis and correlation, and here in input range it will be the same. so I will select the same input range and click OK. labeled in first yes, and the output range I will put it just under output range here up starting here. okay. so again I have the correlation matrix مع على diagonal 1 1 1 1 1 and the values هون باين. great. so عم بعمل save أنا for this and I will send you this file كمان على ال classroom. please do it again just to make sure that you are able to find the variance covariance matrix and correlation matrix. you can copy for example whole data into a new sheet and then do it again, or you can also go to Yahoo Finance and find five or six let's say stocks, download the time series of these stocks على 5 years for example on monthly basis, and then calculate the return and finally find the correlation matrix بيناتهم على return not على مش على prices. okay. great. so هلا حاعمل save this one and then I will go back here and this is the final part of the chapter 32. I will also send you these exercises related to chapter 33 just to make sure that you are now capable and able to do all the exercises related or you can manipulate the functions related to matrices on Excel بطريقة كتير هينة. First exercise هون you are asked to add two matrices مع بعضهم. so هون matrix operations or multiply two matrices and multiply two matrices. so please in an Excel file عملوا for each exercise in a sheet حطوا الماتريكس A شو هي or A plus B تعملون etc etc. the exercise 2 هو is to find the inverse of a matrix, and then exercise 3 how to transpose a matrix using Excel. exercise 4 هو to find when we have a system of equations مع unknowns هو to find شو هي x, y, z and w, and also نفس الشيء solve the equation ax equal y لحتى تلاقوا الأكسس. so هول اثنين تقريبا مثل بعض to find the 4 or 3 unknowns. okay. so كمان هيدا حنعمل له file export PDF and then we will send it to على classroom لحتى تقدروا تعملوا ال assignment. great. now we can move to the new chapter which is chapter 8.